Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here tonight. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by Marrisa Joy, who is an amazing speech language pathologist. She's also an alum of the Start Your Private Practice program, and she really has a very cool practice that she's going to be telling everybody about in terms of how she got started, what her private practice looks like, and what her goals are for the future of her practice. So while we're waiting for her to come on, what I would love for you to do is, as I'm talking and as she's talking, if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask. And we will be happy to answer them. So anyway, she's coming on, I think, right now. Like I said, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And also go ahead and let us know where you are joining from. I'd also love to know, where are people located, like across the US? And also I'm curious, are you an SLP or an OT? I'd also love to know. We have an awesome audience of both SLPs and OTs, and I'm curious what you are. Hey, Marrisa, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so fantastic. Happy Thursday.
Amen to that.
We've made it through the week, and I saw something really cool on your stories earlier, which I want to get to that in a little bit.
Yes.
But before we do that, can you please just kind of introduce yourself and share your name, your location, and the name of your private practice?
Sure. My name is Marrisa Joy. I am located in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, just between Allentown and Reading, and my private practice is named Ripple Speech Services.
Which I totally love. And I'd also be curious to hear like how you came up with the name of your practice, because I always just love to hear that.
Yeah.
But also, before we get to that, can you just share with people, like, kind of, how did you get involved in the profession? How did you pick this career? And then at what point did you start thinking about private practice?
So when I can't remember if I was a junior or senior in high school, I was pretty undecided. And I thought, well, I like English. Maybe I could be an English teacher. And I was looking into that, and I thought, and I say this with all the love in the world for teachers, I don't know if I could do the same thing year after year. I didn't see myself being in the classroom and doing that and being happy for my whole entire career. So I was literally just Googling professions related to English teaching, teaching in general, and stumbled on speech pathology. And this was back in the day, before cell phones, like 06, 07. So I printed off, gosh, I can't remember the name of the website, but it was like 12 pages of information of speech therapy. And I was reading through it, and I remember showing my mom, and I was like, I think I could do this. And from there, it was just hit the ground running, found a school, and dove right in.
I actually had a very similar story where I was actually in college, but I was studying psychology, and we were learning about child language development, and then they touched on like abnormal language development. And that's where I sort of had a light bulb moment, and I did the same thing. I like went to the thing I went to was in the school library. I went to the Job Outlook handbook, which it was actually online. It feels like it was an actual book, but it was online. But then same thing, I like read the description. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could totally do this. And for me, for classroom teaching, like I can't control a classroom. Like there's absolutely zero way. So props to the teachers.
30 minutes is perfect for me.
Totally.
Have our fun,
Yeah,
and go right back to class.
exactly. Okay. So you discovered the profession and you're like, okay, I think I can do this. And then you went to grad school. And then what was your like early career like?
So I graduated, and right before graduation, right after my clinical fellowship, whatever that year, oh gosh, I feel like I should remember this. It's been so long. I had a job about an hour from where my parents were, where I grew up. And so I was like, big girl on my own out there, just an hour away. And I had, it was with a company who had a contract with a school. It was a charter school, and also a bunch of nursing home contracts. And in grad school, I thought I would be the like post-stroke aphasia person. That was what I wanted to do. And then when we were doing those clinicals, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And I really liked working with the kids. So I was excited about the school contract, and that's where I jumped in. It was a tough area. It was really, I had no idea what I was getting into. The school had not had a speech therapist in, I think, at least a year, and they were getting audited. So I had to do, of a caseload of 50 plus kids, all those makeups. It was chaos. I don't know how I made it. It was very much a just keep swimming year. So I finished out the school year there. Everything was, it was good to go. I was very proud of myself. And then they lost the school contract. And I was going between 2 and 5 nursing homes a day, which was fine. Like I had to pay the bills, right? It was just kind of what I had to do. I didn't know any other options. But I was very, very, very unhappy. And I was traveling. It wasn't a very big area. This was in Eastern Ohio, and it was just a lot on me. I didn't really love it was because of, the productivity requirements that we're all so familiar with was why I had to jump around so much, but it was very, very tough. It was a hard year for me personally. I had some loss in my family too. So I think all of that combined just really left a bad taste in my mouth. So I did finish out. I was only there for a year and got my clinical fellowship year out of the way, which was interesting. Like, I don't really remember talking to my clinical fellow mentor very much. It was a crazy, crazy year. But after that, I thought, all right, I'm going to do what I want to do now. And I did not. I ended up working, like, the jobs were in nursing homes, and that's just what I had to do to get by. And we moved around, my husband and I moved around a little bit. So I was just kind of patching in, 6 months here, 6 months there. I remember I worked at this one nursing home where the dietitian sat me down and she had highlighted all of the people who were on a modified diet. And she's like, you need to change this. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works, but okay. So after that, I was like, kids, I can't do this anymore. I want to be in the schools. So I did. We moved to Buffalo, New York. I ended up working at a preschool there it was a variety of needs in that district. It was great. It was a wonderful fit. And then we moved again and landed where we are now. So it was quite a journey. I learned a lot. I will say I'm appreciative for the experiences, but it was chaos at times.
But like I think that probably built your like resilience and then also maybe like drive for more stability. But like it's also kind of nice when people have had a variety of different experiences because you do take things from each of them, both good and bad, right?
Very much.
So that then when you get to be your own boss and own employer, and especially if you at some point like hire other people too, right?
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, I know I don't want to operate that way, right? Or like I want to do these things. These things felt really good as an employee. These things were terrible. I don't want to do that like as a boss, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I have notes in my head ever since every job I took something away from it. So
I love
yes,
it. I love it. So y'all are like bebopping all over the place. You're working at different places. You finally settle. And then at what point were you sort of like, you know what, maybe I'm gonna like dabble in this private practice thing?
yeah. So when we moved where we currently live now in Eastern PA, we're all alone out here. It's just myself, my husband, and my now 2 kids. When we moved here, we just had the one. And I actually wasn't working as an SLP. I was burnt out at not just from the field, but just being a new mom. I had a lot of undiagnosed at the time postpartum anxiety, just things I was dealing with personally. So I kind of took a step back. I couldn't imagine trying to find a job in this new area with this new baby. So that's just what felt right to me. And honestly, I'm glad that I did, because if I would have molded myself into a position that just wasn't a good fit, I don't know that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. It probably just would have been a lot more hopping around. And it was in 2021, I had my second baby, and he had a lot of feeding issues, and we really, really struggled. And I was told by our pediatrician at the time, who is no longer our pediatrician, that it was all my fault and I was doing it wrong, and I just wasn't trying hard enough. And I knew enough to make me dangerous, where if that had been my first kid and I was struggling the way I was personally struggling, that would have wrecked me. So that in the back of my mind, knowing I don't want another parent to ever be told that, whether it's feeding issues or not, was kind of my driving force behind opening my own practice. So we ended up working with a team of really great providers who really helped my son. They helped me. We had a 2.5-year feeding journey that I am so grateful for because of that. But it was hard to find the right people. And I thought, maybe I could be that person. So I actually looked into switching to being a lactation consultant because, why not add that to my plate? But the more I thought about it, I was like, this is under my wheelhouse as a speech therapist. And that's I will sing this career from the high heavens because it has its struggles. Of course it does. We have a lot that we need to work on, but it's so fluid and you really have such a variety of options for populations to work for and everything. So I kind of took that knowledge and squirreled it away for a little while and got out of my postpartum haze and was talking to my husband. I was like, I think I might want to open a private practice, but I really just wish someone could tell me what to do because it's very hard. It seems very hard. And it wasn't 2 days later, someone that I followed was talking about you, Jenna, and the Start Your Private Practice program. And I was like, oh my God, there's somebody out there that exists that can help me. And I signed up right away. It wasn't even like oh, I don't know, is it right, is it wrong? Like, it was an immediate yes for me. And you talking about getting your ducks in a row, I did that. That felt good. It felt good to have a list. It felt good to have a system. And I just kind of jumped right in from that point.
Well, I love that. Well, thank you, first of all, for also being like a shining star in the program. That has been really fun to watch. But I obviously don't love that your son had to go through all these feeding challenges and whatnot, and also for you, as a parent and your family and everything else. But I love that it brought you to this space where you're like, actually, like I could not only help, my kid, I could help other kids out there who are and families who are having similar challenges. And I think that that is one of the things that's so interesting about our profession is that our scope is so big,
Mhm.
right? And I think that when we're just starting in the field, when we go look at the Job Outlook handbook and other places, and they talk about how there's so much flexibility in the field, and then people get in the field and they're like, wait a minute, I thought this was going to be more flexible. I think what they're sort of talking about is that there is flexibility about like who you can work with and whatnot, right? And
Yes.
so and I also think that there is just this growing interest in things like lactation consulting and like myofunctional therapy and some of these approaches that like didn't really, it's either that they didn't exist or they weren't as popular or whatever. And now that they're like catching on and people can see like the tremendous changes that are possible when kids get these therapies that they haven't had, like that's a really cool thing. So I'm so happy that you found that.
Yeah. Thank you. Me too. Me too. I mean, still, I'm 2 years and I just celebrated my 2 year anniversary of having Ripple open to the public, and I still have pinch me moments. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think that's ever going to get old.
Yeah. I totally love it. Okay, so you decided to start the practice, right? You joined the START program. You got your ducks in a row. You used our checklists. You got all legally set up and started. How did you get that first client?
My first client was actually a friend of mine's son who had pretty intense speech concerns. And I knew I wanted to go in on the myofunctional therapy feeding end of things. So I was like, oh, articulation, but it all totally ties in. So I was really excited. I jumped in with him. I've known him for a few years. So it was a comfortable first fit where, we work really well together. And from there, it was a lull. I won't say I had all these clients right away. I did not. It was maybe a few months, 3 months, 4 months. It was a slow trickle. Like I had some interest, like people taking the bait. They would reach out to me, we'd have a conversation, they'd disappear, things happen. And then it just, oh gosh, I think I got like maybe 2 or 3 at a time. And I was mobile at the time. I started out totally mobile. And where I live, it's a lot of farms, a lot of fields, a lot of factories. So you kind of get the the best of both worlds here. It takes forever to get anywhere. So I was spending a lot of time driving, and I'm glad I started out that way. But it was just a lot of time, a lot of effort, where I wanted to open this practice so I could work my own hours and be around my boys, but I felt like I wasn't able to do that with being so mobile and it taking so long. In a city, that would have been different. But yeah, it was a slow trickle. And then gosh, when was this? May of last year, I opened up my physical space. It was one of the chiropractors that had worked on my son. We had, gotten to know them a little bit through just a professional relationship. When I told them I was opening up my business, they were so excited. Ended up not even a full year later, they had that space open and they were like, you want it? You maybe? And I didn't want it. I was scared. I was so scared to take it because I'm like, this is going to be a financial investment. And what if I can't pay the rent? And all those thoughts that we all have, the imposter syndrome was very strong, but I did it and I do not regret it. I have not once regretted that decision. It was the right time.
Yeah, it was well, and sometimes those opportunities present themselves, right? Whether it's an opportunity for that first client, or whether it's an office space, or whether it's a school contract, or something that just kind of falls into people's laps sometimes. it is so cool. Like when you're open to possibility and you're open to opportunities. And I'm not saying that like every opportunity is like the right opportunity for you or even the right opportunity for the time. But I do believe that if you trust, kind of like the universe or whomever anybody believes in to like have things show up when they're supposed to. I see that happen all right. And also being able to like, talk to other professionals and like use that network, whether it's people that you already know, like chiropractors or pediatricians or whomever else, if they know you and they like you and they've kind of seen you operate, it makes total sense to say, hey, like you're really cool. This could be a good kind of a thing. Come join our space. So I think that's awesome that you were able to make that work.
Yeah, and that was a big thing too because networking seems scary. I thought maybe I could just put some stuff on Instagram or Facebook or wherever and people would find me. And yeah, that works. It totally does and it's important, but I had to get out there and do the work, big surprise. And that's been a really fun thing for me too, is just kind of growing along with these other providers in my area. And I would really encourage anybody who is, in private practice, starting private practice to do that. Just see who's around you. Even other speech therapists have been such a good referral source for me because they don't do what I do. And likewise, I don't always do what they do. So that has been really important too. I'm a big believer that there's room at the top for everybody. And I think you've said that before, Jenna. So it's so true. It's so true. It's not competition. It's good to build off of one another.
Well, totally. And just like you said, maybe not necessarily wanting to do like, yes, the Arctic stuff is related and everything else, but like if that's not like the thing that you're the most passionate about, there's other people who are passionate about that, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever. And like if you want to, kind of narrow in on a particular niche, a particular population, then there's plenty of other people who are doing other things, right? Like do you do any like, literacy or reading or anything like that?
Don't.
You don't,
No.
right?
That's not my
So there could be another person in town that loves that stuff. And so when they get a referral for feeding or for something else, they send clients to you, you send the reading kids
Yep.
to them, right? And so like that can be a really, really nice relationship. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit more about your like lactation consulting and myo and
Mhm.
all these kind of focuses? Because I know that there's a lot of people out there who want to be able to provide those services, especially as like through their own private practice.
Yeah. So I did take a breastfeeding specific class. It was through, oh my gosh, one of the big organizations, which was helpful. Um, but I feel like a lot of it, I don't work with babies as much now as I
Yeah.
thought I would. I kind of found my passion in the myo where it's like 4+ ish. So I took a lot of continuing education to kind of feel comfortable doing that. It's really, anatomy focused, which is exciting. And just the way they tie everything together is cool. So I took an intro course through one of the big organizations, Hallie Bulkin. I've used her classes. Just a bunch of people that I've found, even some local people who are really airway focused. And I really like learning from the dentists and the orthodontists and the stuff that I don't know anything about. They're talking about teeth numbers and I'm just looking at them like they have two heads. But I love that because they don't know about what I do, and it's great to learn from one another. So it was a lot, and I'm happy to provide resources if anybody has questions about that. I will talk forever about what I found helpful and not. But it's really cool because this is such a hot topic in speech therapy, especially right now, where people feel very passionately that it's a real thing, it's not a real thing. So just providing education even to other speech therapists that there is research out there and things has kind of become a fun little passion project of mine too, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. So that's nice to talk through too
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, totally. And like just think like I mean it seems like you're like very passionate about this. Is that accurate?
Totally.
Totally.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So were you very passionate about what you were doing at like the nursing home? No.
no, not at all.
Not at all, right? And so I think that that's like something for people to think about. Like we all got into this profession for a reason. Like we chose this profession maybe because we looked and said, "Oh yes, I do have the skills, like check it off." But like I got into this field actually. I do like adults, with stroke and brain injury and that kind of stuff. But my dad was disfluent as a child. So I actually got into the field because I thought that I wanted to do fluency. And then I saw some fluency clients. I learned about it. It turned out not to be my passion, which is okay, right? But passions can change. But I think it's really cool that, like, when you are kind of in this field and you have something that you like, and then you find something that you love, and then if you can have your own business that allows you to focus on that all the time, if that's what you love, allows you to see, like, focus on those kind of clients, and then also do things like set your own hours and like choose exactly what you want to do, like, logistics wise of your job while serving your favorite populations. Like, to me, there's nothing better than that. And that's why I'm so passionate about private practice.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely agree. Just the fact that this is a thing that we have at our fingertips, especially now with the resources, especially the ones you provide. And, it's so exciting. And I am someone who never wanted to be the boss. When I was a kid, I was always like behind the stage doing the off scene stuff. So the fact that I am the one calling the shots and making the decisions is still wild to me. But that just goes to show you that there is a way to do this for everybody. And it doesn't have to look one way. I'm part-time, I don't do this full time. I, I mean, I can go off on this side tangent too about a school contract if you want
Yeah,
me.
go for it. Go for it.
So my oldest is 6. He just finished kindergarten this year, but last year, right before he started, I was a nervous wreck about him going to big kids school and being in the schools. So at one of the informational welcome to kindergarten meetings, I just asked the principal, "Do you happen to need a part-time speech therapist?" Thinking that it was going to be a no. And my husband was like nudging me because I was like, "Should I do it? No, I'm not going to do it." It's like, just go ask. Like, what are you going to hurt? What's going to hurt? So I did, and they did have a need. They were working with somebody virtually for like a 12-hour a week position, and they wanted to move into an in-person position, but they couldn't fill it because it was such a low number of hours. So, I mean, when you say things happen when you put it out into the universe, no truer words have ever been spoken. Honestly, that's happened so many times in my life. But that aside, I ended up, going through the whole interview process and everything, and I worked a 12-hour a week school contract last year. I'm doing summers with them this year, and it's perfect. It is the perfect complement to seeing my office clients because I get to keep those skills sharp, which is something that, I wanted to do. Plus, I get to kind of tie in what I like to do with what you do in a school. And I kind of have to walk on eggshells sometimes. I have to watch my wording on IEPs and things like that, but that's okay because I feel like I'm able to make more progress with my kids applying some of this stuff that I went out of my way to learn rather than seeing someone who's going to be in speech therapy in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. We can kind of nip some of that early stuff in the bud now. And I am really excited by that. So yeah, it was a perfect compliment to my clients.
Yeah. So, listeners, do you hear what she just said? So Marrisa has like her favorite populations, the Myo kids and whatnot that she's seeing, but she also like crafted this school contract. So now you also have that like really stable income. Is it like is it the 12 hours a week still?
Yeah, and honestly, they let me have freedom in writing my contract, which was nice. So if it's a little more than that, that's fine. So it's flexible, which is really nice.
Yeah, totally. So like you've built something. You've literally created a private practice for yourself. And at the very beginning of this, I alluded to that there was something kind of cool about today and about Thursdays for you. So tell people why are Thursdays special right now for you in your private practice?
So I have been very, very busy this year, and I decided that if I was going to work the summer school contract again this year, I was going to take Fridays off, and it was going to be mandatory, blocked on my calendar. I'm someone who doesn't like to say no to people. I like to go, go, go. But like I said, my kids are the most important thing, and I felt like I wasn't, around enough in the summer to do all the fun stuff. So I made it a point to block off my calendars every Friday for the summer. We'll see how that goes next year, if I can like maybe drag that around a little bit differently. So it's very exciting. It feels great because I get to reach my last client on Thursday who I love dearly, and I get to just roll into the weekend for a 3-day
Yeah.
weekend.
So 3-day weekends like every week during the summer anyways, right? Like when you get to, again, when you're your own boss and you get to say like, "Hey, do you want, Fridays off?" And you're like, "Yes, I do." Boom, decision made, right? Again, like it's not always easy to find a job in a regular setting where you have Fridays off. Like that's just not a thing that most people are able to do. But when you have your own job, when you have your own private practice, when you're the one setting the rules, you can set your hours. You can decide you don't want to work on Fridays or you don't want to work until 10 so that you can take your kids to school and maybe go to the gym or whatever it is that you want to do. Like, that is freedom, you guys. That is what people are going into private practice to be able to do. And I'm so proud of you, Marrisa, that you've been able to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so exciting. Like you said, you can make it your own. You totally can. I'm very much part-time. Even between the school and my clients, I'm still part-time. And if we could like throw a number around, I worked a 2K week this week, just like barely working. You know what I mean? It's wild to me.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible.
You're right. So if we just take that math a little bit further, I know not every week perhaps is a 2K week, but if it was, times 4 is $8,000 a month.
Yeah, that's
right?
a good
Like,
change. I was not making that when I worked other jobs for other people. Not even close. So yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes when I do the private practice money math and I say these things, sometimes I don't think that anyone like thinks I'm lying or something, but it seems so unbelievable that people just can't like wrap their heads around it. But when other people say this and they're like, wait a minute, you're working like you said like very part time
Yeah.
and earn 2,000 for the week. Again, you know, there's 4 weeks in a month, so multiply that times 4. Very easy math, everyone. That's $8,000 a month working part-time. I guarantee most of you in part-time jobs are not making $8,000 a month, right? This is why, again, I am so passionate about private practice and why this is such an amazing opportunity for people to do, especially for people like Marrisa with young kids who want to be able to spend time with them.
Yeah, I mean, I get to put my kids on the bus every morning. I get to pick them up from school. I get to do that. And I was so scared of missing out on that. And I know how blessed I am in that regard. But also, you put in the hard work and you can do it too. I mean, it's not impossible. I'm not special, you know, I've just done the things and not all at one time and maybe not in the right order, but they got done and you just keep plugging away.
Yeah. So what do you think's next for you? What is next, you know, for Ripple over the next, you know, 6 months to a year?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hire a virtual assistant, someone to help me organize because, oh boy, does that get messy sometimes. And I would really like to bring somebody else on. My dream would be to have someone come on and work a school contract, maybe find another school contract and just kind of have somebody else do that job, phase myself out, and I can focus more on growing my own clients, my office clients, I call them. So that's on the horizon. And I think it's happening faster than maybe I had planned.
Yeah, because you know there are other people out there who would love to either work part-time for you or full-time for you, who you know either have the same populations that you're passionate about or maybe a different population, but you're seeing a need in that area. And again, like you get to decide, you know, what is your private practice all about? Like who does Ripple serve and how do they serve them? And I think that having that freedom also is like just again really cool to be able to say, no, like this is what we do. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe in. This is who we help and how we help them. And again, when you get to make that decision versus how many of us are in, you know, whether it's schools or hospitals and like administration is making decisions about how we help people that we may not agree with, right? Just like when you were in the nursing home and being asked to do unethical things. Well, I was too. I worked in nursing homes for a little while and I couldn't believe the stuff that I was being asked to do. It was terrible. And I knew I had to get out of there and I did. Right. And so for any of you who are watching or listening this, who are like, you know what, I got to do something else. I got to get out of here. Like I'm not, you know, working in, you know, at the top of my degree, or, you know, I'm not loving my job anymore. I'm thinking about leaving the profession and I don't like that feeling. Try private practice. Like you literally have nothing to lose. Get a couple clients on the side, try it out. Because, you know, what do they say in Green Eggs and Ham, right? Like try it, you might like it or whatever. Like try it, you might like it.
Exactly. Exactly. And even with a couple clients, you're going to make that investment back very like faster than you think. And I also, on that note, just want to encourage people, don't be afraid to set your rates, what is fair for you. Because I know for me, it was like, oh, I feel bad charging this much. Oh, I don't know. Don't, don't, because think of what you're doing for people, for families, for whoever you're serving. And it's important work. We undervalue ourselves a lot, I think, as helping professions.
Well, and think of how much you've also invested in your education, right? Graduate school plus, right? You just said all of these additional trainings that you've done, right? So like when I think when people get worried about setting rates and stuff, they really get hyper fixated on what they're charging for the hour, right? They're like, oh, I don't know if I can do, 100 an hour. That sounds really high, or whatever they're thinking, right? But like, it's not the hour that people are paying for. It's all of the experience that came before that hour, so that that hour can be an amazing experience, right? And we totally understand this when we do like other things. Like, if you're like really care about your hair, right? You want someone who like it's not their like first time doing hair. Like you're paying for all of the experience, beforehand. Or like a heart surgeon, right? Like if you're going to go have, heart surgery, you don't want someone who's like just kind of done this a little bit. You want someone who's done it a lot, and you're willing to invest in that, right? And so, yes, we are really good at what we do. We are really smart, we are dedicated, we are educated, and we are worth it.
Absolutely. Couldn't say
Okay.
it better.
Okay. So as we start to wrap up, and you've done such a great job again of sharing your story and sharing, like, the benefits that this is really, how this has worked out for you and your family. If people are curious about you and they would like to learn more, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram and I think on Facebook too at Ripple Speech Services or ripplespeechservices.com. And like I said, I'm always happy to chat, answer questions, whatever.
Awesome. Marrisa, thank you so much for being on. Thank you again for being such a star student in the START program. And I cannot wait to see where this journey takes you.
Thank you, Jenna, so much.
Welcome. You're welcome. And thank you everyone for watching and listening. And please join us next week for another episode of the Private Practice Success Stories podcast. See everybody then.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Marrisa.